Answers of an Alien from Andromeda, Video 161, October, 2019. Hi friends. My crew and I continue to be requested without much time off. The repositioning of some orbits and slopes is momentarily destabilizing some planets and moons of the system, as you can see even with the purposeful changes made to your available observation software, because even your moon has been repositioned on several occasions, and, for the first time I stepped into a reforestation field in Venus, where the zigs and togs are doing a great job as they are still doing on Mars. We have already found bees and butterflies there, even though the atmosphere is still only 25 kilometers thick breathable, but you can still clearly smell an odor that you would call your sulfur smell. I believe that with current techniques in a few decades we will have many species of mammals there. Questions. Dear friend, inside of Europe you have some totally unlogic microstates, so San Marino, Andorra, Monaco, Liechtenstein, and of course Vatican. A question pop up, why? Why this islands of no law? Does this microstates are in reality a connection to a real elite masters? Yurish, of course, these are specific points where they can accumulate resources such as precious metals, stolen and misappropriated art from other countries, jewelry, things that do not fit the regular banking context. Even though elites control most central banks and control current money and shackle ever debtor countries, they have to have their own havens where no one can question anything, ever. Mithy, Ilona and Ivana Podrozka, sisters from Czech Republic, claim to have been in contact with a humanoid ET called Oli from the planet Alilji. A demonstration in the skies was put on by their ET contact to prove his existence and was witnessed by many. Are these two women being contacted by anybody you are aware of, or are they merely dabbling in questionable dark occult seances? Mike, this is another story created from conscious visions of very imaginative people. And Amazon.com remains firm in the circuit, as CB mentioned here. No EB from any Alilji planet. Dear Mithy, we have heard many times that people waking up from sleep started to speak in a different language which they never learned, so does that mean that it's a sign of an awakening, a sign that the person is level 1? Thank you. Taddy, as I explained earlier, the mind has many deactivated parts that during sleep can be accessed randomly. This symptom you mentioned is just proof that that person was incarnated in other regions of the planet in another zero-level ethnicity in the colony. Memories of different languages, or the ease of learning them, demonstrate the various past incarnations of these people. Dear Mithy, different kind of human beings were transferred here on Earth a long time ago. What kind of beings were here before the donation of DNA happened on Earth? I mean before the civilizations Atlantis, Saxus, Romans etc. were created. Why did they need donation? What did they look like? What was their behavior? Habits? Functions of the brain? Empathy? Aggressiveness and selfishness? Thank you. Polly, in fact, there were DNA crosses with primordial humanoid races that were planted here just as all animals were at certain stages of the planet. The so-called primordial colonization serves to assess the possibilities of fauna balance that can adapt on the planet and subsist on the natural infrastructure of the site. They were rougher beings, like the Neanderthals among many others, who could be used for alterations by cultures that intended to transfer colonies to this planet among others to initiate specific colonization. In ancient times, genetic technologies were experimental and there was a race for breed enhancements that intended their colonies to develop faster than others to increase their representativeness among developing colonies. All ethnic groups that have been transferred to this planet contain part of their DNA from the earliest primordial humanoids brought to the planet during the time of structuring fauna and flora to humanoids themselves. Taking advantage of the perfect adaptation of the primordials, the new ethnic groups adapted without problems to this new environment, speeding this adaptability in many hundreds of years. Mithy, I am from Russia where the population of my country is dying out every year more and more due to a gang of thieves juggling election facts to keep in power and continue to rob people. We are poor in the richest country of the world. The torturers of the people in government such as Putin will simply not give up their power without a fight. Mithy, what would you advise the Russians in this situation? Tatiana, do not think that Russia suffers from this problem in isolation. In fact, all ethnicities are experiencing such problems because the global as well as regional elites have not been properly neutralized. Much pressure is being put on these new times of globalized information so that these elites no longer have the power to maintain their societies at this level of chronic impoverishment, both physically and culturally. The more minds that are conscious, the ones who achieve this in a harsh environment will have a higher added value than those who have gained their consciousness in the more fortunate environments. The important thing is for each individual to do their part and wait for, as the light increases, the harmful insects rush to take shelter in their holes and end up staying there because it isn't possible to fight face to face with the light. Another question concerns the city of St. Petersburg. What race founded it and when? Why was the city abandoned for a long time? What happened, war or natural disaster? Nick, some cities like St. Petersburg were built in places without ground structure to support heavy constructions. Political arrogance usually leads to these errors, and in this city it was no different. Your own race built the city at the expense of many human sacrifices as labor, as it was considered strategic at the time. The city was abandoned for a long time because they believed it would literally sink, but with the exploitation of water that had previously abounded, the soil became less permeable and eventually found support for the overweight. There was no natural disaster, but a disastrous choice of place to set up the city at the time. Mithy, in this picture there is a dark area of structure in the water north of the Easter Island. Is this the exact location of Lemuria or perhaps its capital city? What sort of technological artifacts if any could be found underneath? What race of people live there and where are they now? Thank you. Clark, many of these structures you mention are still in use. Some ancient city ruins still persist. Little may have been left of old abandoned technologies, but of course there is a lot of art in these old buildings. What has marked is a region of current activities. What you mention as Lemuria is a little to the right and a little to the north. All your governments know the positions of ancient ruins and active zones, but they have no technology available to access most of them. Mithy, as I understood from your words, races of level 6 and can literally fly in the atmosphere? Some humans and higher developed races can transmit their thoughts telepathically, or move physical objects using the power of thought and manipulate matter telekinetically? Is it possible to teleport physical objects or even yourself to some other place mentally? I mean only with help of thoughts, without the use of any devices. Do higher developed races have such abilities? Maxid, some higher-level races can levitate, approach objects, eat or drink without the need for containers, but they cannot literally fly or mentally transmit themselves anywhere like a jump. As an example, if you have forgotten your keys in the car with window lock, you cannot make them come into your hand mentally, but you can mentally lift the door lock pin. Higher races can telepathically bridge, and see or feel through a colleague who is on a distant planet, also without the aid of gadgets. About literally flying, only some insectoid races literally fly. Some humanoid and reptilian races have developed upper limb membranes that allow gliding flights just like your hang gliders. Mithy, we have many suppressed technologies that could transform our current reality in beneficial ways, locked away by greed. Curious if you can share any helpful thoughts on freeing up these assets for general use on Earth. Also, being a local now, are you able to share the most helpful diagrams with CB so we can open source them globally? Shiner, I've had several conversations with CB about this. It could even be done, but for most technologies there are no essential raw materials available in most cases. Tesla-type wireless power distribution systems could have been available for many decades, but it would be impossible to control access to it. So it would be impossible to charge for this service, which would mean the end of a millionaire power industry maintained by your elites. All power grids would be scrapped, Billions of investments would be lost by your current elites. It would be impossible in the current social conjuncture to deploy such a thing, which would be readily identified as outlawed and users would be considered criminals or terrorists. Mithy, can you tell us what kind of creature was found in Kyivstom, Chelyabinsk region in 1996? It was 20 to 25 centimeters tall and was still alive for some time after it was found. The mummy mysteriously disappeared shortly after the news and images went public. They called the creature Alashinka the Kyivstom dwarf. Can you determine what race was it if it was from alien origin and what was it doing here? Thank you. Dmitry Sharov, according to the images CB showed, there is no record of anything like this so I can identify. It appears to be some kind of montage and not a real creature. Dear friend, is it true that the earthquake Mag 7 plus or minus, in July 5 in California Ridgecrest China Lake military base vicinity was in reality the destruction of a deep underground military base? Yurish, well, I do not intend to directly address the merits of this issue at this time, but I can say that the first earthquake triggered the expected anticipation for the second with the displacement of a fault detected by the military when building an underground base with tunnels that reached the ocean. It seems that the intention is to provoke a chain reaction to destabilize the San Andreas Fault, uniting the Pacific with the Gulf of Mexico. In this context, be aware of the buried materials surrounding the Yellowstone region. They may be part of the context. Hello dear friend Mithy. Please tell us about visits of Russian patriarchs Alexei and Kirill to Antarctica in 2002 and 2016. Did they go there solely for church business or did they have meetings with CG representatives? Thank you. Safars, I can assure you that you were not there to say Mass. The Russians were spokespersons for requests for the return of alien materials seized by various governments, and were there negotiating conditions with Antarctica-based personnel. Several leaders were there to make sure their partners would not get differentiated favoritism, and that was the main reason for these strange trips. Have harmful chemtrails stopped in the United States? What is the composition of current chemtrails still observed in the skies? If these current chemtrails are beneficial, will they help reverse the deaths of sea mammals like dolphins and whales? Jerry, Tammy, the sprays being used remain the same composition, and maintain high level of aluminum oxide to amplify the propagation power of electromagnetic waves. It is the Pleiadians who are in control of this and I do not have the scientific data from their conclusion about the end use that your military intends to give to this whole procedure. Mithy, our scientists have found an inhabitable super-Earth, called GJ357d, 31 light-years away. Can you tell us anything about it? Who lives there and what are they like? Rho, this named GJ357d is one of thousands of exoplanets roaming your galaxy. All exoplanets capable of carrying biological life are of some sort being sown or already contain civilizations in colonization. This exoplanet in question is at the age of dinosaurs to exemplify. It is a very beautiful planet and is in a period where its nature needs to balance itself, creating the harmony needed for full humanoid colonization. Like this, thousands will be waiting for volunteer societies to participate in the development of new colonies, now under the support of regional galactic communities. Mithy, over 3.5 million people have shown interest to know the truth about aliens by their participation in an upcoming event at Area 51. Would such a showing indicate to the galactic community our willingness to be part of the galactic community? Nika Linsik, let's say this is a small sample. Being curious does not mean being aware of everything. A society needs to be part of a community that seeks to harmonize its components. There are simple people, indigenous communities, among others, who even distant from events like this are already aware by pure intuition that they are part of something much larger, which transcends this reality that they live on this planet. There are truths that no one needs to tell you to believe. Common sense is enough for you to realize within yourself that you really are part of something much bigger than this little planet. When this number is at the required level according to CG analytical parameters, the planet will be immediately prepared to integrate this regional. Mythi, what race is this and what were they doing here? Ruslan Floyd, they are from a level 2 colony of a planet orbiting a binary star system in the Reticulum constellation, just 39 light-years from Earth, and work in association with several other races. They are of good character and do not exploit other societies with bad faith. Some of these groups work in the technical area of some reptilian societies that circulate here and on Mars. Some questions from our moderators. Mythi, we have always referred to species by their star of origin. Please tell us what they call themselves. Please start with the people of Manchak, then Pleiadians, Arcturians, Camelopardalis, Aldebarans. It is nice to know people better by their proper names. See friends, I'll try to shed some light on this. All of these nomenclatures you mentioned are based on the names you gave to these places of origin yourself, absolutely nothing to do with the names or references used in official star maps. Even the Andromeda galaxy was named after you, and that was never the name used anywhere else, only on your planet. It is difficult to name the different societies and their variants because most of them use symbols in their local representations, and in official star maps these registered names or symbols appear in the identification of the society occupying that planet. There are planets with multiple societies of different races that hold several related references, so it is difficult to determine simple names as you are suggesting. These races follow a chronology, each marking its initial place of origin as a race, followed by a corresponding marking for colonies it keeps scattered across other planets. As an example, all 1871 Pleiadian societies initially have the original galaxy mark as the first-generation planetary origin mark, followed by the naming of their second-generation colony, and if the secondary has other colonies there will be a third symbol aggregate indicating in chronological order its identification acronym as third generation, and so on. In the event that a colony is created in another galaxy, there will be a fusion symbol created for these galaxies that will precede the mother race marking. It works like this with all races and their societies affiliated with the galactic communities, so that maps and databases can be synchronized and understood by everyone. Locally societies may have their denominations, often folk names involving founders, characteristics of their planets, moons and sometimes suns. Local names are like you say Towers of Babel. For example, if a Tibetan says I'm from my land in his dialect, a Norwegian will not have a clue where he is, since if he tells the GPS coordinates everything is clear. Therefore in the intergalactic context what matters is the origins of the mother race and all subsequent levels of its social expansions. When a Camelopardalis, Arcturian, Aldebaran or any other breed identifies itself, it always mentions the mother race. If a formal or commercial presentation becomes necessary they will give the general information, which will include the location details of the colony to which their society belongs, which will be easily located in the star databases. Mythi, Japan has begun creating chimeras using human DNA with various animal DNA to produce organ donors and possibly a servant-class being. How does the CG view this type of mad science and what can be done for the poor half-humanoid beings born from the test tube? Well, the Community Galactica has rules that societies will have to follow upon joining as full members. In the case of organ donation, this will lose its practicality with the use of advanced organic recovery techniques that will be made available, but if any breed has been bred intentionally out of humanoid, or slave-like biological norms, that breed will be sterilized and become assisted by CG personnel until their natural extinction. Mythi, I have a friend who reads yours answers who wonders about the number of level 1 people now incarnating on Earth. The question is, who is Kim Ung-yong and why do I suspect that he is more developed beyond level 1? What role will people like him play during the first years of CG contact? People like him can claim to be on the threshold between level 1 and 2. Some are voluntarily incarnated on the planet to serve as parameters, usually driven by a sense of participating in the development of their home race in this colony. In this age of level crossing, more and more people like him will be noticed incarnating or already living on the planet. Mythy: many underground human bases in California have been recently destroyed by factions against the global elite. This conflict was the real reason electrical power was disabled. Some speculation has been voiced about the huge amount of explosives and biological weapons found in these underground bases. Were these destroyed elite bases created by non-human collaborators? See, a lot of underground bases were created by your military, covering vast areas for all sorts of activities, including former laboratories used at the time by a joint venture by reptilian scientists. As the entire west coast of the United States began to become unstable, these bases had to be forced out as tectonic cracks began to compromise tunnel systems and facilities. With the creation of a large infrastructure on Mars, many of these complexes were moved there. But your elites would not throw away this opportunity, and studies were done to accelerate tectonic destabilization with controlled explosions, as I explained a few minutes ago. It was not factions against your elites but themselves that are closing the abandoned holes and seizing the opportunity according to their plans. Mythy: a question about our eventual meeting. What activities does the first welcoming meeting between CG and member candidates involve? Do you meet with common folks or our leaders? I have always had deep thoughts about first contact, but always wonder about the dress code and should I bring a bottle of wine to the party? Well, few of your current leaders will continue to lead, as they do not have the profile or qualities needed to represent this new Earth race. Leaders who will be supported by the CG will be contacted manually, and if they agree will be led to meet with the social transition team to be deployed by the regional CG. The choice of these new leaders will be based on level, personality and ability, so they will be free from suspicion and totally well-intentioned. As for the party, it will possibly happen to your friends and family to commemorate this celebration, and later you can apply to work together with volunteers from this transition with access to technology and socializing with other races who will appreciate your collaboration. Nice to be with you, my friends, again. I really hope to see you soon.